And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10%.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Excuse me there. Tonight, I'm probably going to be starting off with the parents trying to save their daughter that was basically taken from them and is not being treated for what she has. I'll get deeper into the story here in a minute. Free Justina, hashtag Free Justina, and freejustina.com. Once you, I've already brought this story up. Actually, let's go ahead and bring up the first article I covered about this that came from benswan.com. And let me find it here. And this was posted 3 months ago. Let me bring it up. This was, again, benswan.com. Excuse me there. I always have people deciding to try to call me at the last moment. Not gonna happen. Okay, here we are. benswan.com, hospitals holds teen for 9 months. Won't let parents take her home. And it said here, Boston Children's Hospital has taken custody of 15-year-old Justina Pelletier against her parents' will. The teen has been there for 9 months now. Years ago, doctors diagnosed Justina with mitochondrial disease, which causes loss of muscle control. Despite the diagnosis, Justina was able to live a happy and relatively normal life with her family in Connecticut. She was very active and enjoyed various sports such as ice skating. When she got the flu last February, she was taken to Boston Children's Hospital. Justina hasn't left since. Doctors at Boston Children's Hospital claim that Justina has somatoform disorder, not mitochondrial disease, and I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. But the disorder is a mental disorder, not a physical one like mitochondrial disease. After this diagnosis was made, the girl's parents wanted to bring their daughter home, but officials would not allow that. Lou and Linda Pelletier were escorted out of the hospital by security personnel. Only 4 days later, they found out they had lost custody of their daughter due to both parents' resistance towards recommended treatment plans. They are heartbroken and furious. It is kidnapping, Lou Pelletier said. And in this, it talks about it a little bit more, and it also talks about a gag order. And the parents had a gag order placed upon them, and they weren't supposed to speak about it. No party would be allowed to speak about it. Well, the father recently decided to break that gag order. And he broke it with Glenn Beck on the Blaze. And people are like, oh, he could have broke it with anybody. And, well, a lot of the mainstream wasn't covering it. Glenn Beck, the Blaze, have a large audience and a active audience. And people are like, oh, he could have took it to AJ and got it out there. And I think Glenn Beck was the better choice in that situation. Not saying that Alex Jones doesn't have his, advantages, but for this situation, definitely, Glenn Beck. And, well, yeah, they could have done it on another smaller, independent website or something, but, well, here it is on Ben Swan. This isn't the first time it's been brought up, but nothing is happening, and they needed to reach a extremely large audience, and hashtag free Justina today has actually trended on Twitter, and it's getting quite a bit of presence on Facebook too. So it's been a good coverage of it, and now the father is facing a suit being filed for breaking his gag order. I'm trying to bring up some articles and clips here. Again, every time I come on the broadcast, before I, connect to the network, I basically have to close out everything I have on and restart it when it comes to my browser. Otherwise, when I connect to the network, for some reason, it will just freeze everything up. And it only happens when I connect to the network. Kind of weird. Let me see here. Try and bring up this clip. And this is off YouTube. This is from the Blaze, and that's where he broke it. It was on the Blaze with Glenn Beck. I'm going to play part of this and then comment on it, and we will have open phones 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296. If you want to, feel free to call in, and I know there's probably a lot of you out there that have been following this, so let's see if this clip's going to actually even load. I'm having a feeling I'm going to have to relaunch my browser again. Give me a second here. This is just ridiculous. I've done every type of check I possibly can, and I have no idea why it's been doing this. Okay, here we go. Finally. And it's a very, very, very powerful, story for a father and a mother, to have to go through this. This is heartbreaking. And we've seen instances where the state, sticks their head in where it doesn't belong. And, there was a couple that, because they, homeschooled their kids and taught them anti-government stuff, or I don't even think they were homeschooling. I think it was because they were in public school and talked about what their parents talked about, which the school considered anti-government. Somehow the state was able to step in. I wish I had that story. That was an old one. But it's the simple fact that basically the state doesn't believe in parental rights. They believe that your child is property of the state. That you are basically their babysitter that has to pay for them. That seems to be what it comes down to. But let me play a little bit of this and we'll stop it and discuss it. Again, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. Let's stop it there. So every surgery was approved by insurance, was diagnosed by doctors. None of this was like some backroom hospital done stuff. It's kind of amazing that you can have all this done and then they say, well, we're taking your child from you because this was all unnecessary. When what they're doing to his daughter is basically put her in a worse position than she was in before. Back to it. It seems you guys are not hearing anything. Let's see if we can get this figured out here. Let me do something here real quick. Telling you, I've been having nothing but problems with the internet lately. Hopefully this works. And here we go. Let me know in the chat. We're getting ready to play it right now. Okay. We got a whole bunch of squealing, so hopefully we don't get the squealing this time. I'm kind of running out of options here. Here we go. Again, hopefully this works.
Medical child abuse and kidnapping. First of all, they accused you of medical child abuse, that you were putting your daughter through tests and everything else that she didn't need to go through.
Correct. And that is a blatant lie. Number one, everything that's been done, there's not been that much done to her, has been medically verified and insurance approved. Trust me, do you think insurance companies will approve anything?
Right. And you didn't go to Schlock Hospital. You were at Tufts. You were a university hospital.
Yeah. One procedure was done at Connecticut Children's.
Okay. But still, it's not Bob's hospital.
No. And just, that was 4 years ago. She had what was considered a stomach blockage. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They went in, decided to do exploratory surgery, and at worst, minimum take out her appendix. They go in there, Lo and behold, they find a congenital band, 20 inches of cartilage wrapped around her colon and appendix. Congenital band is something from birth. If anybody's watched the movie Poltergeist, 1, 2, and 3, the little blonde girl actually died just at the end of the filming of the third one from an undiagnosed or improperly treated congenital band. So it's a real deal.
Okay.
So that was done in Connecticut. Then the other major procedure done was this cecostomy tube, placed in April of 2012.
But that was done by the doctor who Boston Children's hired.
Correct.
So,
and the chief of surgery. Remember, he was assisting, but the chief of surgery at Tufts did it. Medically verified, insurance approved. Then there was 2 other, unfortunately more graphic, but twice when her feces wasn't moving through, they actually had to sedate her to remove it. Those are the 4 procedures done prior to one having her tonsils taken out. So that's it.
Okay. How about the idea that they are engaged in mental and physical abuse?
No doubt about it.
In what way?
I'll just go through a few of the examples. When she arrived at Boston Children's Hospital, she would have psychologists putting their nose in her face saying, "Why did you have this tube placed into your stomach? How could you let them do that?" They would not do her flushes for days at a week at a or weeks at a time. We have no idea what damage has been done to her colon by the lack of proper treatment. They'd have her sit in the toilet for 2 or 3 hours at a time. You will go. The term they like to use is behavioral modification.
My gosh.
So these fevers or anything, any illness you have, it's all up in your head.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to...
Now, what does that sound like? Behavioral modification. That's some Stasi, Nazi type language right there. This is just completely nuts. And to do this interview, he had to defy a gag order, which now, I'll get into this article here in a minute. Now he's being pursued because he defied the gag order to tell the story, because this has been going on for over a year.
Prove it to the nth degree at whatever cost it is, even if it's your life, to prove that Boston Children's were the...
But she has rapidly gone downhill.
Everybody's seen the videos. She was ice skating. She was in 3 different ice skating shows. In fact, on January 23rd, my mother-in-law, her grandmother...
And she went in on February 10th.
She went on February 10th. She skated for her grandmother that day. Then she got the flu, and again, the results were there.
And now how is she?
Now she's in a wheelchair, pretty much paralyzed below the waist, has almost no muscle control above the waist. Her hairline is receding, gum line's receding, showing malnutrition and everything else.
Lou, how do you...
She's scared out of her mind. She's alone.
What is she saying to you? And what are you saying to her?
We keep saying, hang in there.
Now, they just showed video of her ice skating, doing flips in the air, spins in the air and landing on one foot. And they're showing pictures now of her with her hair receding, her gum lines receding. She pale, completely white, stuck in a wheelchair. This is what's going on. For over a year, she's gotten worse under their care. And the courts still had a gag order on the father, still allowed the state to have custody. Won't let her original doctors, which work for the hospital too, from the Tufts Medical Center, even see her. This is torture. This is complete and utter torture.
To get you out. Hang in there. So she is the strongest human being in my life I've ever come across. I never would have thought of all my daughters that she'd be the one that would be my hero. She is my hero, and she needs to be this country's hero. She needs to change the way medicine can override people who've had a diagnosis to say what they have is in their head. There needs to be a law that's called the Justina Law to end this. Because otherwise, doctors and hospitals will continue to do this, and they're going to continue to do this at a more increasing rate. As more DCF departments are under scrutiny, we have to stop this from happening. Because unless you're a powerful politician or very wealthy, they can take any child at any time.
So who's helping you? Who name a good guy that is who's out there pushing for, who's helping?
Her doctor, Dr. Corson, as much as he can do, given the constraints, limitations, by working for a hospital, obviously he's been her big advocate, trying to get her out of there. But for the most part, his hands are tied. Some of the Mito communities have been trying to raise awareness, but
Well, they moved her from the psych
Beta
department,
5.
okay? And I mean, wouldn't that be a sign to the judge that, I mean, you're moving her out. You said this was a psychiatric, you're moving her out. She's getting worse. What are you doing?
And in fact, where they moved her to, which is in Framingham, Massachusetts, called Wayside, is not a medical facility. And typically people go there for 2 weeks and they're out of there. They don't accept people with medical conditions. In fact, if you went and said you were one of your producers or whatever and called there, they would tell you that. Now, she's been there over a month in a wheelchair, beyond the protocol. In fact, we had to file a complaint against them. Our first visit after she went there, she came to the DCF office, 18-degree temperatures, with soaking wet hair. Then the next time, hair greasy, disheveled, you name it.
How's your wife?
Wife is a mess. She's the emotional one, that will try to put on the brave front, but you take any mom, she'll go through days or weeks at a time sitting crying. She'll fight, she'll get on the phone, talk to whoever, but you just, when it's your child, it's your daughter, the only thing I could compare this to.
You can only imagine that if you're actually going through it. What we're imagining right now, it's heartbreaking. It's just completely outrageous. But when you're the parent, this is something out of a nightmare for them. This is something out of the book 1984. This is something, out of the books that we read, kids, that were basically warning of us of this type of stuff. I'm surprised he's able to even hold it together talking about this. And you can see it that he's struggling to hold himself together.
Natalie is the Natalie Holloway. What that whole situation was, where they didn't know where their daughter was, and here we know where our daughter is, and we know she's being tortured physically and mentally. And it's been going on for a year. And nobody, no politician, no government agency, no advocate has said, time out. Stop it. This is cruel and inhumane. I mean, as I said, Kim Jong-il in North Korea would take lessons from the torture they're doing here at Boston Children's.
Back in just a
Okay, that was part of it. I don't know if I have the other part here. Let me see here. Okay, I think I do right here. Let me see. If we can get this one to load. But this is completely heartbreaking. That they have to go through this. Really? They have to go through this type of pain. It's completely ridiculous. And there's been communities out there fighting. Now, a psychiatric doctor, fresh out of, med school, decides he wants to step up and go, no, she doesn't have mitochondrial disease. It doesn't even exist. That's a made-up disease. It's all in her brain. So we're going to put her in psychiatric. Well, if you really think that's what's going on, this is how this, not the exact words, but this is how the father reacted. I just want her to get healthy. Let's do what you think's best. And, oh, she's getting worse. She's getting worse. And, oh, you won't let her doctor see. Oh, no, I'm taking her out. Oh, no, we're removing you from the hospital. You're not allowed to take her. They kidnapped his daughter and is torturing her. Let's play a little bit more, and then I'm going to cover some articles on this. Again, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in and comment on this.
Abuse and kidnapping. First of all, they accused you of medical child abuse, that you were putting your daughter through tests and everything else that she didn't need to go through.
Correct. And that is a blatant lie. Number one, everything that's been done, and there's not been that much done to her, has been medically verified and insurance approved. Trust me, do you think insurance companies will approve anything?
Right. And you didn't go.
Okay, I think I covered this. Let me see.
Too. Well, who do people call? What do we do?
Ultimately, there are politicians in both the state of Connecticut and the state of Massachusetts that can stop this. They have the executive authority, no matter how much they try to hide behind it.
Governor.
The governor of each state, Deval Patrick, Daniel P. Malloy, the attorney generals of both states, George Jepson in Connecticut and Martha Coakley in the state
Either
of
of them, any of those four, friendly at all on this?
that just bombard them with phone calls.
Okay.
Because they all have political aspirations, whatever it might be. Stop denying it. Stop hiding behind the curtains of the...
Have you talked to the Schindler family?
I have not.
Do you know who they are? Terry Schiavo.
Schiavo, yes.
Okay. Can we get a hold of Bobby Schindler? Bobby is the sister, and he has made a pretty strong organization because you saw what they did to his sister.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. We need to be active on this, and really, again, it's gone viral on Twitter. It's gone viral on Facebook. It's really after, he broke this gag order and went on the blaze. It's definitely went viral, and we need to keep it viral. And because he broke the gag order, here is from the blaze. Contempt charges filed against dad who defied gag order to tell daughter's heartbreaking story. And I'm going to go straight down to the bottom where the update is. Says, Lou Pelletier, Justina's father, called into the Glenn Beck program Wednesday morning and confirmed that DCF has filed contempt of court charges against him. Pelletier said he doesn't yet know if the contempt of court will be civil or criminal, nor does he know of a special court hearing set for this case yet. On the show, Pelletier pointed out that in April, DCF and Boston Children's Hospital were aware that Massachusetts newspaper was working on a story involving Justina's case, but noted that it wasn't until 7 months later, after WTIC in Connecticut investigated, the gag order was imposed. Those are the things that just make you shake your head among so many other things, Pelletier said. Question why a gag order was not imposed earlier then. Pelletier, who called the blaze later Wednesday morning, said the filing from DCF was 6 pages long. It cited 3 news articles as violation of Pelletier breaking the gag order. 2 of these articles, he said, didn't speak with him directly at the time, but were sourcing other media outlets about what he said. Which could have been benswan.com, actually. I'm not saying it is, but, I know they did cover it and cited other sources that spoke with him before the gag order. Our attorney said it's not a surprise. Pelletier said he's going to prepare a motion to lift the gag order. When asked if he regrets talking with the media, Pelletier said, "We are all in at this point." While Pelletier said his deciding to speak out was a double-edged sword, Beck asked if anything good has come out of his telling the family story so far. Quote, "People have been flooding us with donations," Pelletier said, noting it would help his family in what he likened to the ultimate David and Goliath story. Many, many thanks to everybody that contributed, which you can go to freejustina.com and contribute. freejustina.com. The biggest thing is, as I said yesterday, there are people with the power to stop this, Pelletier said later. The governor on both states, the attorney generals, the DCF commissioners all have the power. Executive order to stop this. Massachusetts DCF spokesperson said in an email to the Blaze Wednesday morning that it doesn't provide comment or information about children in its custody. The spokesperson also pointed out that the court-issued gag order prohibited any parties involved from discussing the case or the situation surrounding it. This is just, I just can't believe it. You know, when you wake up, do you go, "Hey, I live in America, a free nation"? Do you have kids? Do you wake up and go, "I have kids"? Or do you wake up and say the state has kids? Well, according to the state, you should be waking up saying that they have kids, not you. This is outdated torture that was seen in dictatorial, fascist, communist regimes. You know, like the father said, you know, it's something that Kim Jong would, over in North Korea, would just be able to learn so much from this type of torture. They're basically slow killing this, you know, girl. And there's been nothing that the parents have been able to do. They've been watching their daughter get worse and worse every day. Every single day. Losing hair, deteriorating, stuck to a wheelchair when she was ice skating. She's become a lab rat to these people. That's nothing new. And I have another story from Ben Swan. And it's about the same hospital, Boston Children's Hospital. This one's titled, "Exposed Boston Hospital Takes Custody of Multiple Children Against Parents' Will." Says here, it has been over a year since 15-year-old Justina Pelletier was taken custody by the Boston Children's Hospital. Her parents, Lou and Linda Pelletier, are still fighting to get their daughter back. Years ago, doctors diagnosed Justina with mitochondrial disease, which causes loss of muscle control. Despite this diagnosis, Justina was able to live a happy and relatively normal life with her family in Connecticut. She was very active and enjoys various sports as ice skating. When Justina got the flu February, she was taken to Boston Children's Hospital. Doctors at Boston Children's Hospital claimed that she has, again, somatoform disorder, not mitochondrial disease. The disorder is a mental disorder, not a physical one. get back down here where it talks about this. According to the Boston Globe, in the last 18 months, Boston Children's Hospital took custody of children or seriously threatened to do so at least 5 times, the Globe reported. It happens often enough that the pediatrician who until recently ran the child protection teams at both Children's and Massachusetts General Hospital said she and others in her field have a name for this aggressive legal medical maneuver. They call it a parentectomy. Basically saying they're making a joke out of separating kids from their parents. They're calling it a parentectomy. Let's give them a parentectomy. They make a joke out of this. This is how sick this is. This is what is going on there. That they can joke about it. We're going to separate a kid from his parents, or parents from their kid. We're cool. No, you're evil. The Boston Globe reported that in most cases where hospitals take custody of a child, parents reject the suggested medical treatment. This typically occurs when doctors diagnose a child with a psychiatric disease, which happened in this case, but the parents think the condition is a physical one. Pediatrician Carol Jenny said, if the parent won't work with you and you really think the child is suffering, you got to act. But in most cases, it ends up being the opposite. They end up harming the child, taking the child that wasn't suffering and making them suffer. Boston Children's Hospital took custody of one 5-year-old around the same time that Justina was admitted. Just like Lou and Linda, the girl's parents were also escorted out of the facility by security. The 5-year-old's first night in the hospital was the first time she had ever spent a night without a family member. In another case, the hospital tried to take custody of Jessica Hillard's son, Gabriel, who was being treated for mitochondrial disease. Hillard said the fact that Children's has so much power that they can get us in trouble with a totally different hospital across the city is appalling. Boston Children's Hospital and its representatives refused to comment on any specific cases, but maintain that decisions are made in the child's best interest in every case. I call bullshit on that. But who really knows what is in the child's best interest? Critics of the hospital's actions argue that such decisions should be left up to parents. Those who favor parents' rights see taking custody as an absurd action where the hospital acts completely out of line. Such situations become even more controversial when the parents' views are backed by other pediatricians. In Justina's case, for example, Dr. Mark Corson of Tufts Medical Center sided with Lou and Linda. Corson was previously a pediatrician for Justina and said in an email, "I am dismayed. It feels like Justina's treatment team is out to prove the diagnosis at all costs." The Boston Children's Hospital team has demanded that Justina be removed from the home. This represents the most severe and intrusive intervention a patient can undergo for a clinical hunch. So this isn't just this happens once in a while. This is becoming a trend there. And someone in the chat said, "Don't go there to that hospital." Well, one of the kids wasn't even at that hospital. This hospital is gaining reach to other hospitals because they're a children's hospital. Oh, and by the way, the children's hospital also use the Tufts Medical centers for mitochondrial disease. Yes, the hospital has a mitochondrial disease department, and Tufts Medical Center is involved in that. And then a psychiatric, fresh out of medical school, out to prove something, can come in there and say, well, nope, that disease doesn't even exist, so we're going to put in a psychiatric. What? Again, freejustina.com, hashtag freejustina. Spread this message. Let me drop some of these articles in the chat. Spread these articles, hashtag freejustina. It's just, it's completely evil. It's sick. This should not be happening. Definitely in a country that is supposedly a free country. That this is allowed to happen for over a year. This isn't something that's been going on while they try to figure out what's going on. This has been going on for over a year. Again, 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in if you would like to speak on this. I'm sure there's a lot of parents, even, non-parents out there that are probably as sickened with this as I am. And I feel for the parents. And, my heart goes out to them that, hopefully this nightmare can end for them and for their daughter. Because the longer it goes on, the more trauma this is really going to cause the family, and the torture that girl has gone through is just, it's unbearable to believe that, she hasn't given up on herself. Like the father said, she has to be a strong individual. She tries to, stuck in a wheelchair, can't even do anything, being tortured, losing her hair. And she's trying to keep her parents' spirits up when they're, for those few minutes they get to speak to her. She tries to keep their spirit up. Seven 717-8296. Hopefully I can get this pulled up here. Again, 717-8296. And hopefully this pulls up for me. And it probably won't. And it's not gonna pull up for me, of course. That's okay. Doesn't look like we have anybody calling in to talk about this. I'll go over a little bit more of it probably here later in the broadcast. I did have another one I wanted to play for you guys. And this is on a whole different subject. I was hoping we would get some call-ins, but looks like nope. But again, hashtag Free Justina, and freejustina.com is where you can go and help out and do what you can. Even if you can't help out financially, that's fine, but try to at least spread it. Use the hashtag. Try to get this trending again. It was trending #1 in the U.S. on Twitter at one time. But let's try to keep it trending. Let's not let it get lost in the mix. And I'm having a tough time finding stuff because I'm having to play audio through a smartphone. Not the best way to do this, but it seems every time I want to do a broadcast, all some technical issues just start popping up out of nowhere. Kind of odd. And I've been having to run around with some other stuff, so I need to get this internet problem taken care of. I really need to update machines, but that's kind of hard to do on a limited budget here. I'm just going to have to search everything I need, because it's not going to pop up. Darn it. I'm having issues here. There we go. I really hate technology at times. Just want to put that out there. And this is from Stefan Molyneux, Captain Phillips and Gun Control. And if you don't know, the movie Captain Phillips has come out with Tom Hanks, and it's kind of interesting.
It's Stefan Molyneux from Freedom Main Radio. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about one of the most rabidly and frustratingly pro-gun movies to have come out of Hollywood, these recent years, the movie Captain Phillips. So Captain Phillips is a story about, loosely based, according to the crew members, of an event where 4 Somali teenagers, 2 of them with no shoes, managed to capture a giant cargo vessel with millions of dollars worth of cargo on it, with a few guns and a skiff that looks like it was made half out of papier-mâché, prayers, twine, spiderweb, and hope. And they board the ship, and then they take the captain hostage, and the U.S. Navy sends Death Stars or Star Destroyers or whatever they're called to go and rescue the captain, which they do. So, sorry about the spoilers, but it's sort of important to get the full story to understand just what kind of movie this is. So, first of all, of course, Somalia, which has a sort of new government emerging, but was the prior dictatorship collapsed some time ago, and I've got some videos about the truth about Somalia, which you might want to check out. It's portrayed as a complete crap heap, both in this movie and in Black Hawk Down, but the reality is it actually has some of the highest standards of living around in Africa, a fantastic telecommunications network, lower infant mortality, longer life expectancy than when it had a government, but of course, you're not going to hear about much of that out of Hollywood, which is generally enormously pro-government and left-wing, partly because they rely on unionized labor to get anything done. So, the reality of why there are pirates is touched on in the movie, that the Western fishing vessels are going and scooping up all the fish, leaving the fishermen with nothing. But more importantly, a lot of vessels were dumping toxic waste into the ocean off Somalia, and this killed a lot of the fish and marine life and didn't leave the fishermen with much choice. So they think of them as sort of an impromptu navy that was attempting to drive destructive foreign ships away from the shore. So, 3 weeks leading up to the events in the movie, 16 container ships had been hijacked, 8 of them were captured, and the crews were held hostage and then sold for ransom. The ship's approach, and Captain Phillips tries a variety of strategies to keep them away, and one of them involves setting up the least fun water park known in the history of mankind when they turn these massive hoses on these pirates as they try to board the ship, and one of the hoses goes awry, and a guy goes out and risks getting shot to turn the hose back the right way, at which point the pirates just climb up anyway, so not the most effective strategy. And at one point, Captain Phillips opens a safe and pulls out a box, and you think, aha, finally a gun to chase the pirates off with. Yes, it is a gun, but it's the flare kind of gun, which he then shoots at and misses a number of times. For anyone who's had any exposure to these kind of arguments, one of the things that's just so frustrating about the movie is why don't they have any weapons on board? Why don't they have, a rifle, anything, an anvil to drop Roadrunner style on the boat below, the pirate boat below would have been helpful. Why is it that, a couple of dozen crew members in a multi-million dollar ship could have been hijacked by a bunch of teenagers, again, 2 of them who have no shoes on? Well, like all of this sort of nonsense, a lot of it has to do with international law, wherein you can't sail into a foreign port with any real weapons on board, and so it's governments that don't allow the ships to have any kind of security. The government's advice to the ships sailing through the Somali waters is sail super fast, like 18 knots and above. And what that does is it actually burns hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of extra fuel. Like ships are like highway cars on steroids. The faster you go, the more fuel you use proportional to the distance traveled. So the ships are told to go super fast, and then they burn up hundreds of thousands of dollars of fuel extra, and it doesn't usually work anyway. Captain Phillips was instructed to stay 600 miles away from the Somali coast. He says he was less. He says he was 300. Reports have him at 250, 260 miles away. So he was sailing a bit too close, but that's something for the lawsuit from the crewmen to the captain to be sorted out. What's happened since this incident is that shipping companies have now got trained gunmen on the ship. And this cost them about $30,000 to do. And it's a lot less than the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they would have spent burning up the fuel. And it has no ship that has one of these paramilitary crews on it has ever been hijacked. And in fact, the general sort of piratical activity has diminished and is almost non-existent now as a result of some basic defensive maneuvers. Why is it $30,000 to go? Because they can't put the defense team on the boat in a port because they have weapons. So they have to have a boat meet up and put the defense team on board once they're in international waters, and then they have to have another boat come and take the military team off when they get close to, and because the governments don't allow the weapons to come into the dock. Now, some countries have changed that and have allowed the weapons if they're secured and locked up and all that by the time they get to the ship, to the port and so on. But again, it's just governments don't allow you to carry weapons, and therefore you need billions and billions of dollars worth of military hardware, and Lord knows how much fuel. You need Navy SEALs, paratroopers, assault helicopters, aircraft, and small sea crafts, again, to deal with 4 Somali teenagers, 2 of whom have no shoes. 3 warships alone cost tens of billions of dollars each, and this is the kind of nonsense that occurs when the government takes over your protection. There are lots of other ways to deal with pirates. One that is employed by the British Navy is Britney Spears. Not individually, but in terms of her songs. They pump out Oops, I Did It Again and Baby One More Time at massively high volume, and it drives the pirates away because apparently they hate Western culture and Western music, and this drives them off. So that's, again, fairly creative. Tragically, one of the British Navy officers have said that they would use Justin Bieber's music, but they would consider that to be against the Geneva Convention. Hey! No hating on the Biebs. So this is an example of just how crazy governments are and how they strip away your protections, and how a free market solution would just be ridiculously efficient. And so I think it's an interesting movie to watch. I think the performances are good. But you have to just kind of get over the annoyance at how unnecessary all of this stuff is, and how ridiculous, disarming people puts them at such risk of death, of mutilation, and so on. And it's a very good argument as to why governments should just stay out of industry and business as a whole and let people find, whether it's, hired guards or Britney Spears music or even the aforementioned nuclear strike of Justin Bieber's music. This is the way that you keep people protected. You let them protect themselves, because there's no guarantee that even with tens of billions of dollars of U.S. military hardware, you're not going to get killed in the process. So this is Stefan Mullery from Freedom Main Radio. Thank you so much for watching.
Wow. I was just reading the chat room. The whole thing about not being able to bring guns in ports because you don't want an invading army when you got a shipping container with 5 guys on it, or, 10 guys on it, or 20 guys on it. It's idiocracy. I understand it from a government standpoint. But that makes no sense, because, well, if another army wanted to invade, they could still do it no matter what your laws were. So the laws don't stop invading armies. The only person that thought it was legit for Germany to invade all these other countries was Germany, Hitler, and his cronies. In the other countries' eyes, that wasn't, something that they were allowed to do. They basically waged war on other countries and invaded. Okay. Oh, and by the way, hashtag free Justina. I might just go ahead and say that a few times throughout the show. Again, if you did not catch all the information about, Justina Pelletier, Lou, and, which is her father, and everything going on, you can go to the archives for Anti-Tyranny News Radio on ucy.tv or at antityrannynews.com. Just find the Anti-Tyranny News Radio tab, and when you go to that page, you'll see a radio archive right above the player, and you click that button, it'll take you to the archive, and get the first hour of tonight here on antityrannynews.com and Anti-Tyranny News Radio and ucy.tv. Because it's really a heartbreaking story of basically the state torturing a girl and her dad trying to save her life. Okay. Again, everything wants to freeze up. I swear if I have to restart this browser one more time, I'm gonna flip out. Haha. I had a pop-up ad that just was playing in the background, slowing everything down. I'm trying to find a certain video. I don't know if I'm going find it. Let me see if this is actually the one. And nope. Now, I don't know if anybody else out there has tried a smartphone, but they are nothing like a computer, and I'm not a fan of smartphones, tablets. It's actually almost like a dumbing down of computers. It's too simplified and doesn't allow you to do what you want to do. So it doesn't look like I'm going to play that clip. Okay. We'll just go to the next article here. Okay, here we are. Is President Obama bullied by the United Nations not to decriminalize marijuana? This is out of benswan.com, posted by Evan Mulch. President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder have recently been receiving a lot of pressure from lawmakers to remove marijuana from its classification as a dangerous narcotic. In a letter signed by 18 members of Congress last week, the president was encouraged to instruct Holder to delist or classify marijuana in a more appropriate way, at the very least eliminating it from Schedule 1 or 2. This probably won't load like anything else on here. Maybe it will now. And I just got a warning, connection speed low. Great. Got 2 tabs open and my connection speed's low. Okay. I can't play the videos, but it says in this video taped in 2004, President Obama said publicly that he believed the war on drugs had been a failure, and that he believed that the American government needed to rethink and decriminalize marijuana. The American public is also aware of Barack's pot smoking days when he was part of the Choom Gang in Hawaii. In this video, the president even admitted to inhaling frequently as a young kid. Again, I can't play. So why is it that after 5 years in office, President Obama has yet to move forward and decriminalize marijuana? It's not because most Americans are not in support of it. As shown in this NBC poll, which has a link there, most Americans want to legalize marijuana, and it's also not because President Obama can't do it through executive order. He has already implemented nearly 200 executive orders since his presidency began. So who is stopping our president, especially during a time when Americans are moving to Colorado to get access to the plant in order to improve their health? The answer is most likely linked to a treaty that the United States made with the United Nations over 50 years ago. The treaty is called the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs of 1961, and most Americans are unaware of its existence. On page 3 of the document, it classifies cannabis and cannabis resin and extracts and tinctures of cannabis as a narcotic drug. In 1971, the treaty was amended by the United Nations, and in that same year, President Nixon declared war on drugs and characterized abuse of illicit substances as public enemy number 1 in the United States. Was it coincidence that Nixon declared war on drugs the same year that the treaty was amended? Definitely not. The amendment to the treaty included a provision that stated that a party prohibiting cultivation of the opium poppy or the cannabis plant shall take appropriate measure to seize any plants illicitly cultivated and destroy them, except for small quantities acquired by the party for scientific and research purposes. In effect, the amendment required the United States to enforce the laws on their books against the cultivation of marijuana. And first off, we need to completely get rid of the United Nations. Completely. Just done. Gone. Bye. When you have world governments plotting against citizens and controlling citizens, that is a world government. In George Washington's farewell speech, he warned Americans against the establishment of permanent alliances with other countries, connections that he warned about inevitably by subversive of America's national interests. It is time for Americans to once again heed his warning. The United Nations officially came into existence in 1945, and the American public was told that it was going to be a vehicle for maintaining peace and stability amongst all nations that joined the organization. Were the American people lied to? Did the federal government even have the constitutional authority to enter into the United Nations? Is the violent American drug war what the founders of the United States had in mind when they decided to tell people that it was going to be a vehicle for peace and stability? A lot of questions need to be asked about the United States' past involvements with the United Nations, but one conclusion can easily be drawn. There may be no better time than now for America to exit the United Nations and go back to obeying the U.S. Constitution, so that Americans can once again have the freedom to grow, sell, and use marijuana for the health of the people of our nation and for the cause of liberty. We need to purge President Obama and the rest of Congress to exit the United Nations immediately. And urge, not purge. Again, that's from benswan.com. We just, when do we not have issues with the United Nations or our own federal government being controlling? That we are under either a national dictatorship or a worldwide dictatorship. When we watch administration after administration play along with the United Nations, we hear officials talk about we take our orders from the United Nations, or we gain our authority from the United Nations. We need to call this out. And exiting the United Nations, extremely good idea. Okay. Thought I had one here. That was pretty recent. Okay, this one wasn't the recent one I seen, but it's on the same subject, and it's from Gun Owners of America. And it's titled, Should You Lose Your Gun Rights If You Visit a Shrink? In a preternatural example of tone deafness, a administration under fire for snooping into Americans' privacy is now proposing to waive federal privacy laws so psychiatrists can report their gun-owning patients to the government. This is all in the Obamacare. The Department of Health and Human Services notice of proposed rulemaking floated by the White House in a Friday media dump would waive portions of the Federal Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, to allow psychiatrists to report their patients to the FBI's gun ban blacklist, the NICS system, on the basis of confidential communications. The 1968 Gun Control Act bans guns from anyone who is adjudicated as a mental defective or committed to a mental institution. Unfortunately, under 2008 NIST Improvement Act, drafted by Senator Charles E. Schumer, New York Democrat, and its regulations that education can be made by any other lawful authority. This means a diagnosis by a single psychiatrist in connection with a government program. In the case of nearly 175,000 law-abiding veterans, the lawful authority has been a Department of Veteran Affairs psychiatrist who generally will take away a veteran's guns by unilaterally declaring him incompetent and appointing a guardian over his financial affairs. Certainly the findings can be appealed, but most veterans don't have the tens of thousands of dollars to hire lawyers and psychiatrists to do so. Although the problem hasn't yet been as apparent in other areas, police and firemen on Social Security disability for post-traumatic stress disorder, Medicare seniors with Alzheimer's, and people who as children were diagnosed under the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act program with attention deficit hyperactive disorder will ultimately face the same fate. Even a subsidized Obamacare policy might now make Americans participants in a federal program. In fact, the process of expanding gun bans has now begun once one gun owner in a virtually anti-gun state was placed on the gun ban blacklist because many years ago police, without the approval of any court, put him in a mental facility overnight. The facility found nothing wrong with him, but that didn't stop his state from recently turning him into the FBI for a lifetime gun ban. In another case, a gun owner in an anti-gun state lost his guns because of a prescription for a psychiatric drug. Will imposing gun bans on Americans who seek counseling keep us safe? Ask the 175,000 veterans who have lost their guns shortly before taking their constitutional rights away with no due process. The government had no problem issuing them fully automatic assault rifles and sending them out to patrol the streets of Baghdad and Kabul. Rather, the real agenda of the gun-hating Obama administration is to strip gun rights from law-abiding Americans, even if the result is to discourage people from seeking counseling. And you think about it. That's exactly what it's going to do. Gun owners that just need a little counseling. You know, everybody needs someone to talk to sometimes, and sometimes people don't have anybody to talk to that's close, and they need someone that, well, will keep it private. Just personal things they need to talk about, and they just don't want everybody and the brother to know. And it's something that, it's nothing that's making them unstable. What's going to make people unstable is not having anybody to talk to and be afraid to talk to a psychiatrist maybe, if they need to. If that's their one avenue for someone to speak out to seek guidance. For some people, it might be the church. Maybe for someone that might not be religious or has different beliefs, they might seek someone out, and now you're putting probably more people in danger. We really need to do something about this. A lot of people don't understand how far Obamacare is really going to take this. There's provisions in Obamacare that, you know, we've talked about defunding Obamacare, how bad it is. You know, your rates going up. You know, people losing their jobs, Obamacare being bad, but we're really still not addressing some of the real bad issues with Obamacare. Them wanting to use tracking type devices. Them wanting doctors to ask you about your guns. This is 1984 lockdown. That's what this is. It's securing the police state, the 1984 lockdown. And that, you know, that's probably another reason why Obama's delaying provisions. Because really, if they truly enacted everything, it'd be war on the streets. There would be war on the streets if they try to enact everything in Obamacare quickly. Because they're doing what they've done for generations, for hundreds of years. Slow implementation of laws and programs and acts that give up any privacy that you have. Along with Obamacare, the NSA, everything going on. Then you have all these departments buying up ammo. When you have the FDA buying up ammo. When you have the Postal Service buying up guns and ammo. When you really look at everything, Obamacare, all that, the wanting to track people, they want you to have tracking devices, RFID chips, NSA facilities that use billions of gallons of water to cool it. Google now buying out robotics companies contracted with the government. Artificial intelligence. They already have their own, you know, server storage facilities. that probably rival the NSA's. Where are we as a country, as a people, as a, world? Look what they did over in India. Iris scan, thumbprint, facial recognition. Everybody. Billions of people. Then you see wanting to do all that. Already police stations are taking iris scans. And facial recognition. And then you see people getting they were innocent, didn't do anything wrong, getting arrested. Iris scan. They want that technology out on the streets where they don't even have to take you in. They can walk up to you in your car and just with their little phone. And it'll pop into the system and beep at them if you're wanted. If not, well, guess what? You're in the system now. Let me see your ID. Oh, you got a barcode on the back of the ID. Let's go ahead and scan that. And now that iris scan I just took of you might be tied to your ID. So moment I scan your iris next time you get pulled over, guess what? It'll come up. This is technology that they talked about coming out with, 5 years ago. Look like we dropped out there for a second. Hopefully we're still there. Hopefully I didn't lose connection. Okay, we're still connected. Just making sure. Excuse me. Been close to getting a cold, but been fighting it off, and it's just been one of those getting a dry throat, trying to drink tea and other things to try to keep it wet. Don't have a sore throat, but I've been talking all day and kind of been talking with a dry throat, so working on getting myself a sore throat here. Okay. I'm trying to bring up Pigmine's channel, so give me a second here. Again, I have to do this on the phone, so. Otherwise, I'd have it right in front of me. Okay. And, a lot of people know what's going on in Kyiv over in, Ukraine. And the one thing I want to say about this whole thing going on over in Ukraine, there's something wrong with these people. They're being controlled. This has to be some type of proxy thing. Because basically they're going, don't give me communism, give me fascism. Don't give me, where's the protest wanting actual freedom? Why Why side with the West? Why side with the Russians? How about this? Side with your damn self. But, why can't you be, Ukrainians, not Russians, not, Europeans? How about this? You be individuals. Maybe some of these protesters might need to go to Iceland maybe and take some keys from them or something. I don't know. Take some cues from our Constitution. It's definitely not anywhere near perfect, but it's about the best thing out there if you're looking for a document to try to outline freedoms of people. And this one's from Pigmine 5. Let's see if it'll actually play.
Now to the Ukraine, where the country is seeing the most violent protests yet. Dozens of people are reported dead as protesters clash with the police. This after officers attempted to clear out Independence Square, the hotbed of protests in the capital city of Kiev. At least 9 officers were killed trying to do this, according to the Interior Ministry. Now, as the conflict turns deadly, U.S. and European leaders are putting pressure on the Ukrainian government to ease up on using force. Here's what President Obama had to say about it today while on a trip to Mexico.
We hold the Ukrainian government primarily responsible for making sure that it is dealing with peaceful protesters in an appropriate way, that the Ukrainian people are able to assemble and speak freely about their interests without fear of repression. We expect the Ukrainian government to show restraint, to not resort to violence in dealing with peaceful protesters. We've said that we also expect peaceful protesters to remain peaceful.
President Obama later said there would be consequences if the government does not back down in the form of sanctions. But the Ukraine says it's the protesters that are fueling the violence, pointing to the death of several police officers. Ukraine's top security agency also says that it is launching a counterterrorism operation. The agency says protesters seized over 1,500 firearms and 100.
Don't you think maybe it's both of their faults? Maybe it's because you have communism and fascism fighting each other, both known historically to be, well, murderous, violent, evil, sadistic. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's because no one's fighting for freedom. No one's fighting for true liberty.
Thousand bullets just in the last 24 hours. Now, as the country turns to chaos, is there any solution in sight? RT's Alexei Yaroshevsky is reporting in Kiev.
Last night we reported from the Independence Square, from the protester side. This time we'll take you to the other side of the barricade, the police lines, where obviously the atmosphere is very tense. I just took a stroll through the police lines, and the policemen seem to be very concerned of what's happening here. Over there, as you can see, the police line is here, and over there the protesters. They lit the tires on fire again. The whole area is covered with black smoke. It's hard to see, to breathe, and the police are pretty much everywhere across the place. Heavy presence right now, especially after the information that reportedly protesters in the western part of the country, the Ivano-Frankivsk city, stole at least 15,000 bullets, several hundred handguns and machine guns from the security services arsenals, and are bringing over to Kiev. That's why the authorities are implementing some sort of counterterrorism operation mode in Ukraine. We do not know for sure what that is, but that is definitely meaning tougher security measures everywhere across the country, tougher police cordons. But you can see for yourself the movement of the police is, they're rotating all the time. They're moving their forces now and then. It's not particularly violent at the moment, although just a few minutes ago we saw from this building over there, which used to be the police, the Revolution headquarters, the former labor union building, several Molotov cocktails were thrown right at the place where I'm standing right now. As you can see, it looks like a genuine war zone with all the rubble, with all the rocks which were thrown at the police, the remains of Molotov cocktails, garbage, everything. So this used to be a beautiful area in the central city of Kiev. It's pretty much a telling story of what it has become over the past several days. This is a true mayhem. And right now, you can call it a standstill. You can call it pretty much a calm situation compared to violence last night and the violence on Tuesday. But you never know what's going to happen next, because everyone behind this line of fire, behind the barricades over there, they're expecting another assault from the police. The police who are standing calmly and doing nothing at all. They're just securing the perimeter as far as we can see. I spoke to some of them. They were not really aggressive. They're not expecting any movement tonight. Said, you can move there because it's going to be quiet. But again, no assurances of that, because no one knows what comes from that side. There's documented proof already that protesters have used live weapons, live rounds against the police, as well as the police using some of those against the protesters as well. So we keep monitoring the situation, and we're hoping that no major violence will happen during the night as it happened on Tuesday night in Kiev.
That was RT's Alexei Yaroshevsky. Well, Western leaders say they are putting pressure on the Ukraine government to put an end to the violence. The conflict has divided the country, with the Ukraine blaming protesters for the bloodshed. Well, Sergei Trifkovich is a foreign affairs editor at Chronicles magazine.
We have witnessed brazen hypocrisy from the European Union ever since the beginning of this crisis. From the phase of demonstrations early on, the protests had degenerated into hooliganism in mid-December and into terrorism since January 19th. And we can no longer use the term demonstrators. I would rather use the term rebels, because we are looking at de facto armed rebellion for Yanukovych to continue listening to the clarion calls from the West. And he has also been called by Biden and by Kerry and asked for restraint. Would be simply self-defeating, because all of these people are up to no good. They want regime change. They're interested in a geopolitical control over the key country in Central Eastern Europe.
And that was Sergei Trifkovich, a foreign affairs editor at Chronicles magazine.
And again, like I said before, it's one of those things that you have them fighting between, do I want to be controlled by this regime, or do I want to be controlled by this regime? And I think what they're failing to recognize is, when you join the EU, now no longer can you fight your government, because you will be controlled by the EU, which is in a whole different country. You will be centralizing the control over your whole life to even worse, system. At least now you pit someone else in power that doesn't want to side with either side. But they're not doing that. That's why you have to look at it as something that's being controlled. There's no other way. There's a message that's being controlled. And we've seen this during the Occupy. Did they give any libertarians that showed up at Occupy any, TV time? No, it was always a socialist. And even the socialists there pushed socialism. And they got all the camera time. They pushed libertarian type people out. They were controlling the message. Hence why a lot of it failed. Because, you can't say, we need change. We need the exact same change that Obama's doing exactly right now. People are looking at you like, the hell are you protesting? You're saying you're basically cheerleading what the president's doing. What's the point of protesting then? But, we have people in the United States that are, big government people. They do believe in a world government. Oh, if we had a world government, then we wouldn't have any more wars between countries. Having absolutely no concept of the individual. That's the problem when you start looking at the world in a collectivist view. To understand where we need to go as a people, as a nation, as a species, as the human race, you have to look at people as individuals, as different, as diverse. You have to be able to agree to disagree and stop fighting each other. That's just one thing that lately has been on my nerves. And I really have about zero tolerance for it. And that's dividing and conquering. I'm just, I've been so fed up with it lately. If you want to discuss subjects, ideas, where we need to go, that's fine. But even in the alternative media, the liberty movement, whatever you want to call it, everybody's been focusing on attacking people, other people that are trying to fight the system too, which in return they end up retaliating. You got two people attacking each other instead of attacking the system. Too busy attacking each other. Diversion. I'm just tired of it. If you want to attack people, then, I just don't have the time for it. I'm trying to take on the system. I'm trying to take on, this whole control mechanism being placed upon the people. So attacking people that I might disagree with, that I might say, hey, I think this would be the best way to live your life, but you think this would be the best way to live your life. But we can agree that we have the right to live our lives that way. That I shouldn't be able to control you and your way of living, and vice versa. We need to stop the infighting. They're winning because of the infighting. They've been able, in the past 10 years, to push so much through government and make government so much bigger because of the infighting. Because they have manipulated the populace to fight each other. Everybody has a problem with government. Everybody complains about our government, about their rights, their freedoms to live their lives the way they choose. Wouldn't that seem like, well, a logical thing would be everybody fight the system? Well, no, they're fighting each other. Why? Because when we disagree with someone, well, I don't think that, let's use the marriage, the gay marriage for analogy. Well, I don't believe, because my religion says that marriage is between man and woman, I don't believe that a man and a man or a woman and woman can be married. Okay, that's your opinion. Well, my belief in God allows for a man and woman to be married, so I agree with it. Okay, that's your opinion. Why force the other one to accept that way? Because you're fighting government. Because government has claimed authority over marriage. There's the problem. The problem isn't whether your state allows for gay marriage or not. Your problem isn't, well, I don't believe in it, so the state shouldn't allow it. Well, no, the state shouldn't be involved. Guess what? Then your church can choose whether to marry or not marry a gay couple. You can call a gay person's marriage whatever you want, but in that gay person's marriage, it's a marriage. There's some gay couples that don't want the title marriage. It's a heterosexual term to them. Therefore, them being called marriage wouldn't be correct. They look at it as a heterosexual term. So, that's a big diversity in ways of thinking. How can you centralize it? You can't. And this plays out in almost every aspect of your life. Whether it be healthcare. Not everybody believes in pharmaceuticals. I don't like pharmaceuticals. For me to even accept an antibiotic is something would be extreme cases. Extreme cases. I use natural antibiotics. That's my choice. But you force everybody into a health insurance that is based on pharmaceuticals. That type of practice. Well, if you're forcing someone upon it, wouldn't you have to make that accessible to naturalists and all these other ones? Because that's that person's preference on healthcare. What you call healthcare might not be what someone else believes healthcare is. There's a lot of naturalists that look at people that go to the doctor every time they get a little dripple from their nose. They gotta run to the doctor and get some drugs pumped in them. They look at them as nuts. That's not healthcare, that you're damaging your body. Now your body can't take care of itself. Now you have to go to the doctor every time, you even start to feel sick, because you will get sick because your body can't fight anything. A lot of naturalists, look at it that way. That's actually documented. Just the way, kids that aren't ever exposed to dirt are more likely to be allergic to a lot of things. To get sick when they come in contact with a lot of things that other people can roll around in. That's why a lot of people can't go on a hike without being filled with drugs, because they've never been exposed to that stuff. So, healthcare means different things to different people. How can you centralize it? You can't. Because to centralize any of this stuff means taking the right of the people to choose. That's a fundamental no-no if you believe in natural rights, in human rights, in the rights of the people. Major no-no. A lot of people might look at our country now and go, the founders just weren't smart enough to see it coming. Well, I think they were, and they warned us. And, history repeated itself, and we didn't heed the warnings. Now we're suffering because of it. Now every aspect of your life is centralized by a federal government. Your food, your health care, your status with your loved ones, your property, your communications, and because of your communications, your thoughts. That's what the NSA is. That's what their investment in artificial intelligence is. They are centralizing your thoughts. Why would they do that? To help them better manipulate the populace? If you know what the populace is worried about, if you know what the populace is leaning towards, makes it a lot easier to control things. Maybe that's what you're seeing in Ukraine. They knew the friction was heating up and they could control the message. Whoever they may be. Let's get back to the individual. Let's get back to you as a person. Whether I agree with the way you live, I completely support your right to live that way as long as you're not harming other people. And that's the fundamental thing. When you have a libertarian view, that you have that right. As long as you're not harming other people. As long as you're not bridging their rights. Okay. What time? Whoa. Kind of flew through that last half hour there. We got less than 10 minutes left here. Okay, let me go ahead and bring up this. Now, I've talked out about fluoride for a very long time. I think it's force medicating the public and doing it on lies. ADA recommends fluoride for children. Ireland gets first fluoride-free town. And this article was submitted by guest contributor Derek Rose. In the last week, 2 different decisions on water fluoridation have come from 2 different continents. Recently, the American Dental Association is now recommending fluoride toothpaste to children at the first sight of a tooth. At the same time, Bantry, Ireland has now become the country's first fluoride-free town. American Dental Association guidelines at ADA issued their new guidelines through the Journal of the American Dental Association on February 10th. Prior to the new rules, parents were recommended to use water to brush children under the age of 2 and to brush with fluoridated toothpaste for those from 2 to 6 years old. Under the new guidelines, the ADA recommends a smear of fluoride toothpaste for children 3 and under and a pea-sized dab for those age 3 to 6. I'm going to stop right there because if your child's teeth aren't even showing, they should have absolutely no fluoride. Absolutely none. That's been proven. And really, you want to look for evidence about what fluoride really is, what it does, and the proof that it's really not something you want. Fluoride Action Network And I see here down in the article they brought up Fluoride Action Network. Let me read the rest of this. The latest changes are sure to spark debate between the pro-fluoride and clean water camps. Most readers are familiar with the warning labels that appear on the back of fluoridated toothpaste. Warning, keep out reach of children under 6 years of age. If you accidentally swallow more than used for brushing, seek professional help or contact a poison control center immediately. And some say if you swallow any, contact poison control. But they'll put it in drinking water. Says here, according to the Fluoride Action Network, one strip of fluoridated toothpaste on a child-sized toothbrush contains between 0.75 and 1.5 milligrams of fluoride. It is unclear whether a smear or a tea-sized dab meets those measurements, but what has been found is that those who brush with fluoridated toothpaste, especially children, are at risk of dental fluorosis, a yellowish staining of the teeth. When an unsupervised child brushes their teeth, there is a high probability they will swallow higher amounts of the toothpaste than an adult. This puts them at risk not only for dental fluorosis, but also active fluoride toxicity. Since the symptoms of toxicity mimic other common illnesses such as the flu or upset stomach, many people may, according to the Journal of Public Health Dentistry, estimating the incidence of toxic fluoride exposure nationwide, also is complicated by the existence of biases. Parents or caregivers may not notice the symptoms associated with mild fluoride toxicity or may attribute them to colic or gastroenteritis. I can't even pronounce that. Particularly if they did not see the child ingest fluoride. Similarly, because of the non-specific nature of mild to moderate symptoms, a physician's differential diagnosis is unlikely to include fluoride toxicity without a history of fluoride ingestion. It's hard for me to believe that they would come out after how much evidence has come out that it's really, really bad for kids, that they would go and change their study. And the reason why I would think that they would do something like this is, well, because most people are getting away from fluoride. I've seen a spike in people seeking fluoride-free toothpaste. So, it's definitely something that I do see happening. We're coming up to the end of the broadcast. Great show. Coming up next, it's Try This at Home with Dana Martin here on UCY.TV. I just want to shout out to Jules and UCY.TV for everything they do for Anti-Tyranny News Radio. This platform that is here for me to come on, I don't have to pay for. Do what you can. Go to UCY.TV. Down at the bottom, there's an Amazon store tab. Check out some of the gear. Great survival gear, radiation type gear. And all the purchases from the Amazon store help to support UCY and everything they're doing here, all the great hosts. And make sure you support UCY and spread the message. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you Friday, Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Take it easy.